Hello, I'm Professor Ginkgo, and this is a recreation of a prior video I made. If you already saw the first, this is just a revoice of my original video with some more series added. If you want to know why, stick around. Otherwise, we'll see you later. So, why did I remake this video? At this point, it is one of my most viewed videos, but I was never really happy with it. I rushed a lot of production in order to get it finished for Spectember, and because of that, I made a few errors, most glaringly misattributing a work from Unnatural History to Curious Archive, something I wanted to fix since I figured out. You can't really fix YouTube videos without just re-uploading, so I just put a fix in the comments and I called it done, because I had to work on midterms around that time. However, when I finished my midterms, it became one of the most viewed videos, and I never really liked how much a glaring error was there. Like, it's right there. I don't know how I messed up so much, but here you are. I don't like the thought of someone not looking in the comments and checking out the wrong content creator, even though it's right there on the screen. And I do like both content creators, but it's just something it's been bugging me. Also, in general, there are a few series I definitely missed that I would really like to come back and talk about. So, since I've both gone as a content creator and I really don't like that old one, I've decided to just completely rework it. I don't like, in general, scrapping things, so it won't be removed. It'll just be unlisted if you prefer the old one. It'll still be on the previous playlist, but I will not have it on my channel. So, this video originally was made for Spectember. If you don't know, Spectember is when a lot of biology and natural science content creators do things related to speculative evolution. What speculative evolution is? Speculative evolution, or Spec Evo for short, is a type of media that talks about fictional animals that hypothetically could have evolved. In general, most speculative evolution talks about how this animal evolved, how they fit in their environment, things like that. Some of my favorite science fiction worlds are those created with a bit of speculative evolution in mind. So today we're going to talk about a bit of a primer, a bit of a greatest hits as it were. We're going to start with a little bit of an abridged history of Spec Evo, then after that we're going to have a deep dive into some of the ones you should watch. It might surprise you, but speculative evolution actually started with early science fiction, the earliest one showing up in H.G. Wells' The Time Machine. Wells describes the descendants of humans in the future. The dumb but beautiful Eloi, who are descended from the rich class of humans, and the ugly and underground-dwelling Morlocks, the descendants of the poor, who preyed on the Eloi as cattle and actually raised them. Wells was an early socialist, and the poor will rise up and eat the rich was not a coincidence. In an earlier draft, he also describes humanity's evolution further on, evolving to be even more unrecognizable, to be these weird rabbit-like things. He also describes strange crab creatures patrolling the beaches, hunting what looks like butterflies as Earth's rotation goes out and the sun slowly dies out. H.G. Wells was not the only one to dip his toe into speculative evolution. The books set in Barsoom, written first by Edgar Rice Burroughs of Tarzan fame, all have a massive alien ecosystem and have various cultures along with sentient races. These two writers, along with being among the fathers of modern science fiction, are also the grandfathers of speculative evolution. A good chunk of speculative evolution actually focuses on these two topics. How might things evolve in the far future, or how might things might evolve in far-off planets? The first unarguable speculative evolution I somehow missed in the original was Snouters, form and life of rhinogrades, or in the original German, alright, drumroll, let's see if I can do this. Bo und Leben der Rhinogradentia. I did it. Written by Gerald Karl Stinner under the pseudonym Harald Stump, it's half prank, half thought experiment. Rhinogrades are a group of extinct shrew-like animals that all have various adaptations surrounding a nose organ called a nasarium. It's written as a fictional account from the Museum of the Darwin Institute on the fictional island of Hawaii, and has a scientific paper-like tone. It gives a short account of the Hawaii archipelago, which was undiscovered from Western science until 1941, when it was discovered during World War II. It was then shortly blown up afterwards during atomic bomb testing, along with every single rhinograde researcher who were on the island in a conference, the only surviving evidence they ever existed being the book, apparently. As you can tell, this series has a strange sense of humor. It mixes dry, scientific descriptions around a textbook that, combined with the weird adaptation and appearances rhinogrades have, makes for a very standout read. Rhinogrades fill semi-believable niches like that of a frog, more often than not can go into some stranger adaptations. Some of my favorites being the ones that mimic snails or flowers. Snouters have a very strange mix of scientific explanation combined with fantastical adaptation that combined really paves the way for future series like Monster Hunter with its use of ecology to make plausible animals, or some of the more stranger animals in After Man. It's not quite fire-breathing dragons, but like other fantastical speculative evolution, the text just gives enough explanation where, with some suspension of disbelief, you can't help but think this could be possible. This series is also fairly accessible to read in the modern era. Hard copies are a bit pricey for such a short read. In general, it's not as bad as other speculative evolution we'll see on this list. It's also somewhat of a meme in biologist circles. Both biologists and fans just making models, fan art, and even their own fan rhino grades. It, however, took until the 80s, the year of weird hair and satanic panic, for speculative evolution to really start get going. Among the awkward years for the West came After Man, which was a book written by Dougal Dixon. The man oftentimes considered to be the father of Spec Evo, and one we will get into great detail. His book influenced most of modern speculative evolution, in fact, with After Man having detailed animals that had straightforward niches in their ecology. He even took plate tectonics into account, which, for the time, was cutting edge, being only 20 years old. After Man left a ripple effect, and a legacy of After Man could be seen in speculative evolution influencing things from film to video games, even television. With one major example being the future predator of the TV show Primeval, being a descendant from predatory bats. This was very similar to After Man's Night Stalker, which was a large predatory bat that lived on an island. The giant predatory bat is actually somewhat of a meme in speculative evolution circles, and there are many takes on the Night Stalker itself. After Man was highly influential, and it cannot be understated that speculative evolution probably will not have the same effect if it did not exist today. And is its legacy we're going to see today. I'm going to go over several series, go over the premise, and hopefully you can use that information to judge if you want to watch it or not. I highly recommend all of these pretty much, but some of these might not be up your alley. That's okay. So without further ado, let's get started. Alright, let's start with books. So speculative evolution starts with books, and there are a lot of ones to pick from. Dougal Dixon himself having 3. After Man, New Dinosaurs, and Man After Man. After Man is an oldie but a goodie. It sets the groundwork for most speculative evolution projects. It is a pretty straightforward concept. How exactly would life evolve 50 million years in the future if mankind went extinct? The Earth's tectonic plates have shifted once more, and Earth is very different from how you know it today. Australia has collided with Asia, South America once again splitting apart from America in general. It has a very interesting premise, although somewhat unrealistic. Many have often criticized the plot, the main plot being that ungulates and carnivorans have gone extinct, which paves the way for rats and rabbits to fill those niches. The story also has a lot of creatures that are very interesting and weird, but they have a bit of a grounding in biology. Something speculative evolution has a great way of telling. After Man is pretty cheap to find. It has a reprint recently and is available on e-readers, unlike the other two we will talk about today. New Dinosaurs is a different sort of speculative evolution. It's telling the story of an alternate current day where dinosaurs never went extinct. Similar to After Man, it hasn't aged particularly well with our current knowledge of dinosaurs, but is very imaginative. In some places it's also aged like fine wine, him putting feathers on dinosaurs despite it not being commonplace back then. In addition, he also depicted terrestrial pterosaurs before Anxarchids were discovered, and he created climbing dinosaurs before Microraptors were discovered. It's somewhat of a meme in the paleo community, with the New Dinosaurs predicts discoveries in a similar way to The Simpsons predicting real life. It is honestly really amusing whenever something like that happens. This is one of my favorites, but it is extremely hard to find without paying upwards of $80 for a used copy. Man After Man is the last one on the set, and is probably the wildest of the 3. It takes place in a world where mankind has absolutely ruined it. Humankind genetically creates several species to aid it in the death throes of civilization. They create a spaceship to take mankind beyond the stars. They also create genetically engineered human forms, all designed to radiate and take natural niches. From then, time moves on, and the various human forms alter into a wild, weird, and really freaky species. This wasn't something that he just did as a one-off, however. In an earlier interview with Omni Magazine for a promo After Man, Dougal Dixon did a future human people call a Tumen, that is really just a mass of tumors with a super intelligent brain. It's an interesting prototype that really leans to the sci-fi angle. Future humans build synthetic bodies and reaching age up to 200, that kind of weird thing that is classic sci-fi. The main reason for the humans, though, is not my favorite. It's kind of, I wouldn't call it eugenics, but it's kind of eugenicist. Modern medicine turned out bad for the human gene pool and caused inferior genes to spread. It's kind of weird. I'm not always a big fan of that. Although Man for Man is the least well received of the three, this is a pretty good read for those that can stand the freakiness. I remember feeling a bit put off reading this one as a kid. The art really freaked me out. It's a lot more personal description too. Different species are taken in a POV narration angle instead of having a field guide voice like the other two before it. It's also really hard to find nowadays. This book is very expensive from resellers, and it hasn't had a reprint in years. Although it is very weird, and it's hard to recommend to newcomers, it is worth a read though, once you've got into it. Something I failed to mention in my first video was that Dougal Dixon's work is actually extremely popular in Japan, even more so than the West. Not only is it still pretty popular there, Afterman has actually spawned several museum pieces. This also includes an exclusive descendant from Japanese macaques that toured only 2 years ago, actually. New Dinosaurs had a manga, and it had an anime. In addition, Afterman also has a stop-motion documentary, which I really want to know exactly what is the narrator saying, because once again, it's untranslated. I really hope that we can get this translated. This is mostly an adaptation from what I can tell, but the end has an intelligent dinosaur, one that we will go over later today, along with Dougal Dixon's own take on the concept. Finally, he had his own book that was never really translated in English despite him being Scottish, which is called Green World. Green World is Dougal Dixon's original concept for Man for Man. Humans colonize a world and settle in the planet of Green World. The story is a cautionary tale. Mankind recreates the mistakes of the past and ruins the alien biosphere, bringing the speculative animals of Green World to extinction. It's never been translated to English, but Dougal Dixon is hoping for a publisher, so fingers crossed I can get this last member of the Dougal Dixon anthology on my shelf. Or at the very least, an ebook so I can actually know what the heck goes on here. Okay, let's be honest. If you've watched this video, you probably already know of Sam Kozman's Ultimaros. A spiritual successor to Man for Man, he tells the story of mankind taking the stars and colonizing it before losing a world to a galactic superpower called the Coup. The Coup take humankind and just genetically alter them. They reduce the multiple humanoids in the Empire to mere animals mentally. Those species are then thrown across the stars by the Coup and eventually re-evolve into multiple species. It weaves a balance between impersonal facts and an attachment of various races. It gained internet fame a few years ago, and for a very good reason. The body horror and the strange imaginative horror really sticks with you. There are multiple videos for you to watch. This is very easy for you to check out too because it's just a free online PDF. Go see it if you haven't. It is crazy. Next is my personal favorite of these books, Expedition by Wayne Barlow. Expedition takes place on a ruined world. However, unlike Man for Man, it has aliens come down and help humanity with their world. Those aliens then find another planet rich with life, and then send a crewed expedition to the planet, Darwin 4. Darwin 4 is a world that is just so different from life on Earth. Instead of eyes, you have a radar that's evolved as the main way for perception. Jaws is well and evolved, and hermaphroditism is just the general trend on the planet. All these together make for a really unique and strange world that feels like it could exist. The art is just also incredibly beautiful. Like, this is some of my favorite of all the books, just from how pretty it is. Like, I want these as posters, I swear. For those that also are tired of the impersonal field guide the others have, this one has a narrative feel. The narrator writing it as a sort of diary. It's pretty cheap to order too. It had a pretty recent reprint. I have it on my bookshelf. This is just a very good read. I highly recommend it. Although Speculative Evolution will never quite reach mainstream popularity, it is sometimes used in film for world building. One of these films being the 2005 King Kong by Peter Jackson. A good amount of lore in Speculative Evolution was done in the world building. And The World of Kong, A Natural History of Skull Island, was a field guide written by Weta Workshop. Skull Island has that whole Lost World vibe to it. You have animals like Brontosaurus, which is back when we thought Brontosaurus was an accurate name. And you have animals that just in general have that kind of like pre-dinosaurs renaissance, like hulking vibe to it. However, it has a more modern take to it, which is really cool. I do love the aesthetics of the old pre-dinosaur renaissance world. So it was a very good read. The art in all the books are great, and World of Kong is, I think, on par with Expedition. The biology isn't as detailed as the other books, but its showcase is still pretty good. You see a lot, and it takes its time on a few bigger animals from time to time, like, of course, King Kong. If you want to buy this at a reasonable price, however, you're fresh out of luck, this can set you back to around $500 for a used copy. It is insane. Luckily, A Natural History did a showcase on the entire book, and it's a channel that I will talk about later. He is amazing. If you have a passion for speculative evolution like myself, please go check him out if you like this video. He's good. Speaking of films, Avatar used speculative evolution to result in stunning visas and wildlife. Although it's oftentimes criticized for its story, no one can question the amount of sheer effort that has been put into world building. And to many people, it's led as a kind of gateway for speculative evolution. As a film, it's not that hard to watch nowadays. It's on most modern streaming services, and has a sequel. In addition, the world of Avatar is on a free online database that, although is not really extensive, I think is at least on par with some other online projects I've seen before. So, pretty good. In addition, if you're really willing to shell out the price, you can check out the theme park version of Florida. It's tied into the main theme of Avatar, and in general, a lot of the stuff they have there are connected to the speculative world of Avatar in some way. I was there a few years ago. It was really cool, but not everyone's gonna pay, so you can just look up a walkthrough online. Those exist. Speculative Evolution has also had a good amount of documentary series. The most iconic to most people being The Future is Wild, which is a 13-episode series. It's a spiritual successor to After Man, and The Future is Wild has an almost identical premise to its predecessor, leading animals to evolve in a post-human world. Unlike After Man, however, you see multiple time periods, 5, 100, 200 million years in the future. They're all really interesting, and you can see snapshots of the future. CG hasn't aged really well. There is a few weird lore stuff, like all cetaceans going extinct and eventually all mammals going extinct. Feels kind of weird to me, but still good nowadays, and the designs have aged super well despite that. They are very iconic. Most speculative evolution fans, including myself, love them. My personal favorites being the Gannet whale and the Spitfire birds. Those are both some of my favorites. Even got a few museum showcases and a theme park ride, which was really interesting when I learned about that. Like, I knew about the museum showcases, but the fact that there's a theme park was really curious. Like, I don't know what would actually be there, like what kind of rides they have. I haven't looked into it. I'll probably put a B-roll footage where I can find it, but if you've been there, like, tell me how it was, because generally I don't know how it would be. Though the main issue is finding on streaming services. Many classic documentaries unfortunately aren't preserved well, because we all know Discovery Warner just loves to cut off old documentaries and animation for tax benefits. Gotta hate corporations. It is on Prime Video, however, but not in the USA. Luckily, Curious Archive, another YouTuber that does speculative evolution stuff, did a few episodes on it. He sometimes goes over various projects and gives a kind of like abridged rundown on them. I highly recommend, if you can't find any of these today, go check them out. It's not quite the same, but it's pretty good. You put it in the background while you're working something. I really like his videos. It was supposed to get a sequel series, but this was unfortunately at the start of David Zaslav's, I don't know how to pronounce his name. I'm not gonna cut this. I don't care about him. I hate this man. David Zaslav is now his name. I don't care. This was unfortunately at the start of David Zaslav's tenure, which meant that they wanted to shift from documentary into reality TV, and even though they got enough funding for a sequel, they pulled the plug. And we know nothing about the series, save for a terrestrial dolphin design and a flying squid design. This terrestrial dolphin, though, was eventually reworked and showcased in 2016's The Future's Wild Google VR Cardboard Edition, which was that event in Cannes and Frankfurt. And it had an announcement that a VR game was in development when they showed this off. To be honest, though, the game has had very few updates since then. The developer even taking it off the main page, which means that we have no clue where it lies. In 2019, they broke radio silence, mentioning that if there would be a major brand relaunch of the series, and then, along with a few other projects, The Future's Wild VR would then launch. That was 5 years ago. We haven't got a single update since then, and I personally don't think we're going to see the series again for a long time. I would love to be proved wrong, but don't put your hopes up. The Future's Wild also got a CG cartoon. It was aimed for a much younger audience. It had a lot less ecology and evolution than its parent series, and instead was focused on exploring the worlds of the future. The plot takes a bit from the original concept of Man After Man, with mankind building a time machine and looking to colonize future Earth. The premise of the show was built on going to the future to find a home, but they don't really touch on that aspect in the first and only season. I don't know if they would have maybe done more on that with the second season, but only one season was ever made, and it leaves up on a cliffhanger. Despite that, it's a pretty cute show. It's nothing really groundbreaking, nothing new is added, but it's pretty neat. Dragons of Fantasy Made Real is technically part of a trilogy, but it's really only one of its trilogy worth watching, the other two being weird pseudoscience, fake documentaries that more focus on tricking you rather than being speculative evolution. This premise is pretty simple though. How would dragons evolve? How would they interact with humankind? How would they breathe fire? How would they fly? Questions like that, it's really interesting. Like, the CG is a lot better than Future's Wild. Like, this thing holds up pretty well, all things considered. And that's in part because they blend practical and CG very similarly to Walking with Dinosaurs. And these live action segments do a lot way to explain adaptations in the universe, which is pretty neat. Like, they really made like this big old dragon model that was like a mummified dragon. And it looks really realistic. I remember growing up, some people at my school actually believing that it was a real documentary, and I had to explain them that no, it wasn't. And even like when it first launched, it even had like this post-credits making of feature. So that way you would know that, you know, it's all fake. We all thought this up. I was like 6 when it came out. So I actually would have believed it was real if I didn't see the post-credit making a feature with it. This is something that the others in the trilogy did not do. Instead, they really wanted to appeal for conspiracy theorists and talk about what the government was hiding from us, instead of this one, which is just about some scientists believing that dragons are real and going crazy after he finds it and dissects it. This video is a lot harder to find online. It's not even available on any streaming sites, but it's just a one-part series, so it's a lot easier to find online if you can just find it floating around. Go give it a watch, and please, I've watched the other two. Do not watch them. You are doing yourself a favor, trust me. Alien Worlds is a Netflix documentary, and it's the newest of these I'm talking about today. This takes the different concepts for different planets that might have life and theoretically talks about how life would evolve on these planets. Like, it has like a tiny lock world, it's a low density world for things to start flying around the atmosphere. CG is the best from the documentaries here by far. It is phenomenal. The creature concepts are also really unique and honestly pretty original. There's a few tropes here and there, like the sky whale, which is another common trope that you see now and then. The alien monkey is not my favorite either. You know, it is what it is. It's a common trope for a reason. It's really unfortunate because it had so much potential that it just didn't live up to. Although the CG is very good, oftentimes it just cuts to a specialist. Like, there was one episode, I forget what the entire context was, but they just got a specialist whose entire job was to take like little dioramas of like bugs and just have them fight and do that for documentaries. And I don't know why they do that for like a specific episode. That was pretty much the entire episode. Like, they get a specialist, talk to a specialist, and then cut to the CG world, use the same animation over and over again, rinse and repeat till it's finished. Really unfortunate that the balance of specialist to CG isn't really there. It's mostly specialist in the same CG animation that you've been seeing for the entire episode, which is really unfortunate because it's one of the newer stuff and it has a lot of potential. And on top of that, it's newer, it helps explain a lot of concepts without getting too in-depth, which is pretty neat for newcomers like how you might be. So, you know, it's not totally a waste of time if you're new to the genre and you think, hey, I kind of want to get into some space stuff. You know, a lot of the videos we will talk about today do have similar concepts. So, you know, if you found this actually really interesting, I would recommend watching this and then moving on to some of the other ones we will talk about today. If you did like Alien Worlds and really hope, you know, man, I really wish this was more in depth, watch Extraterrestrial. Or, you know, if you're in the UK, it's also called Alien Worlds. Kind of confusing. We're going to call it Extraterrestrial. So, sorry, British. I'm an American. What am I going to say? This was commissioned by Nat Geo, and the main premise is that both American and British scientists have to go over theoretical worlds and go over the life that could exist. Alien Worlds and Extraterrestrial both have actually similar planets too, one planet being tidally locked and the other being in a low-density world. Unlike Alien Worlds, it had a lot more focus on the CG creatures and the speculation around the worlds. It really has this mid-2000s science fiction edge that I really love. Like, it's kind of looks like they're inside a vault in like Fallout 3. You have like these holograms. They're all kind of like crowded together. It's cool. I like it. It's cute. I think if you enjoyed what Alien Worlds had to offer, you'll really like this. The CG, though, is not as good as Alien Worlds. So, you know, still pretty good. More than makes up for its crazy ideas. And I believe that this one was available on streaming services. I watched it some time ago. I don't know if it's available on streaming services anymore. Let me check, actually. Oh, Charlotte took it off. Yeah, took it off. Unfortunately, it was taken off streaming services. I did watch it, luckily, when it was still up on streaming services, but it was taken down, so it's a lot harder to find nowadays. As I mentioned, all documentaries are not preserved well. Lastly, of these three, Alien Spec Evo documentaries we'll talk about is my favorite. It is also very hard to find, but it makes up for it because this is an adaptation of my favorite, Expedition. Although its CG I feel is kind of worse than Extraterrestrial, it still makes up for it because it brings the world's Expedition to life, which is really cool. This isn't my favorite of these documentaries altogether, but you know, it's pretty good. In my opinion, the book's straight up better. It's not a rip of the plot though, so that's good at least. It has some value if you've already read the book like I have, and it's really cool. I do like it. It's just, you know, I think the book's better. So, it was 15 years between quality documentary series, and that's if you consider Alien Worlds to be a quality documentary series, which I do, but some don't. So, you might think, well, where else can I find Speculative Evolution if I really want that kick? And the answer is the internet. Speculative Evolution is basically biology fanfiction, and because of that, it really went crazy online. One of the most earlier influential ones being the Speculative Dinosaur Project. This was the most influential of the earlier Spec Evo projects online. The concept was essentially new dinosaurs before a kind of post-dinosaur renaissance world. And at the time, it was actually the most scientifically accurate project of its kind. The project had pages and pages of well-detailed work, and they would update various pages depending on more recent updates. Unfortunately, the site they were hosted on died, and the project went on indefinite hiatus in 2008. The staff just got tired of having to revise their dinosaurs with every single major discovery, and they have been archived on the Speculative Evolution Wiki, so it's not lost media. I don't like how they're organized on the wiki. It's kind of organized in a way that's really hard for a newcomer to get into. This year's Spec World is a very good entry point to read the premise of the concept, if you really want to get into it. Still, try not to let the organization discourage you, because genuinely it's a good read, and I really do enjoy coming in and reading some pages from time to time. So the thought in an alternate world where humans didn't become the main sapient species is a really interesting one, actually. A lot of speculative evolution projects do have that, and the concept's been around since at least 1982. Paleontologist Dale Russell had a thought experiment where he pointed out that the Schrodontid Stenatosaurus had an unusual amount of brain size compared to others. He hypothesized that should have the age of dinosaurs continued, it could have evolved into an intelligent animal, eventually becoming sapient. This dinosauroid was then brought to life by Ron Seguin, along with an accurate model of its predecessor to compare the two. In his mind, it would end up really similar to humanity. He thought it would have a reduced muzzle, an upright gait, and even a navel. He also wondered if this concept was too reptilian to be intelligent. The dinosauroid was also really popular when I was a kid. I remember it in multiple encyclopedias I owned growing up. The concept even made it into a Discovery Kids TV show, Dinosapien. The dinosauroid has been met with a large amount of criticism. A lot of it consider it too human-like. As for my thoughts on the trope, though, I don't like the original. I really don't like the original. This embodies my least favorite spectrum evolution trope, which is the assumption that anything intelligent would naturally evolve a human form. This ignores the fact that humans are not specialized for sapiens. Like, we are sapient specialists, that's true. But body-wise, we're more based on endurance hunting. We can just walk down our prey because of the way we sweat and our efficient walking. That is how we evolved. Like, if anything, we have gained sapience in spite of our body, just because of us being able to get good food because of our foraging style. Like, human childbirth, for example, is really labor intensive because the mother's pelvis is really narrow compared to the baby's head size. I really don't like human bias in a lot of biology stuff. I think it is very, very outdated. But, even I admit, human is like the most intelligent species. We are the most sapient species, We are the only sapient species on Earth. That is unarguable. And it's true that, we're the only animals on Earth that walk like this. But you can't just assume that one is the cause of another. Like, evolution is complicated, and that's pretty much the same thing of a sports fan going, well, I wore my lucky shirt today, and my team got a home run. So every time I wear my lucky shirt, my team will get a home run. Like, causation is not always correlation. You can't put them two together. Like, it's more than just assuming one is true because the other's true. If you compare intelligent animals on Earth too, you can see that this isn't a prerequisite. Elephants aren't bipedal. Corvids aren't bipedal. Cephalopods aren't bipedal. Cetaceans aren't bipedal. And they're incredibly smart. Like, some people are thinking that cetaceans in particular are nearing human intelligence, which is, I'm not a specialist. I don't know if that's true or not. But the fact that we're even talking about this shows that bipedalism is not a prerequisite for hyper-intelligent animals. Hi there. Editing Ginkgo here. I realized in my rant I called corvids not bipedal. They are, in fact, very bipedal. You can see that they have two legs. What I meant to say is that they are not humanoid, which, obviously they are not. I just want to say this in case, anyone want to hold dialogies and be like, behold, a man. Yes, I know. So, make that clear. Cool. Also, while I am here, I just want to say something that I missed when I was doing the rant because that was very improvised. Main thing being is that, the humanoid form is also just extremely rare in general. So it is very low likely that any animal, at least, on Earth, would have evolved it because our form is very much derived twofold. First, from being descended from arboreal animals, and then, the endurance hunting thing. And as you can see, primates share a lot of our life history, and not a lot of them do, have the humanoid form. Hominids, I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe hominids, the fossil record, are the only ones to actually have the humanoid form. And that is because, as I mentioned, our hunting style. And so, the same thing would also, presumably, because, because, we only have one planet as reference, which is Earth. And that would be, based on our knowledge of the fossil record, the humanoid form is very specialized, and because that is possibly a rare occurrence in and of itself. So, to believe that things would naturally evolve a human form and then turn into intelligent creatures is presuming a lot on those different planets, Okay, back to the video. It's perfectly fine, honestly, when the media's main focus is entertain, like Star Trek, Star Wars. I don't care. You gotta put a guy in that suit, make it humanoid. I don't care. But harder science fiction like Avatar, it is a personal pet peeve of mine. Despite the fact that I hate the original, the concept's okay. The thought experiment of how an intelligent dinosaur would evolve is in of itself a very interesting thought to think of. I do, really like messing around with different concepts, and even though I don't like the original, I think that the concept of a hyper-intelligent dinosaur does have merit, and apparently Sam Kozman, author of All Tomorrows, thought the same. He worked together with comic artist Simon Roy, and they both decided to make their own spin on the Dino Sapien. They are inspired by zoologist Darren Naish's writing on the concept. Darren Naish have gone on record saying that instead of it being more human-like, it should instead retain the main dinosaur body plan, having feathers, being horizontal, things like that. Simon Roy, in his concept, was inspired by corvids. He wanted to use an already known intelligent family of birds as a base, while Sam Kozman also used corvids, but added non-avian dinosaurs, ground hornbills, and parrots to the mix when he was working on his concept. And then they both just got their concepts together and kind of split off of that. Although they originally wanted to make a book, they both agreed that it would be way better as just a world-building exercise, and you can see it fully in length on Sam Kozman's website. This world is one where the KT mass extinction never happened. You have Maniraptorian animals diversifying and taking most of the niches. Also, which is pretty cool for this kind of world, they put mammals in there, since they were arguing that since mammals were diversifying pre-KT mass extinction, they still could have gotten large even with dinosaur competition. And I think that is really neat. I think in a lot of the speculative no KT extinction thing, mammals just kind of forgotten, and it's assumed that they would have just, stayed small. And I kind of like to see them diversify. The culture is also shown too. They have ritual hunts, they have art, domesticated animals, and spirituality. It's really cool. I hate the original, but I feel that this is just like a better version of the original. So please go check it out. It's not that long of a read. It has a lot of cool artwork. I recommend it. Serena is a project that for its time was unlike any other, and this has actually inspired several other series very similar to it. This premise is that a world was seeded by an observer for a long-term scientific program. The moon of Serena was seeded with a few animals, with the largest vertebrate breeding finches. The product then takes off from there, every single species on the planet just diversifying into practically unrecognizable forms. And it's a kind of like a hybrid between what we've been talking about with like the more Earth-based, like how could this evolve into this scenario, and the more extraterrestrial-based speculative evolution with, a thing on a different world with different parameters than Earth. Multiple periods are gone in the world's history, and the landmasses are, talked about. Various world events occur. It is not a static world. Various mass extinction events are caused by some outside forces. And it's really cool. It's really extensive, and I love Spec Evo projects like Futures Wild that do that, where they kind of check in periodically on the world. This world is very well done. My only issue with the project is really minor. The site's drop-down bar isn't in chronological order, so first read-through I was kind of confused, but going in there on my recommendation, you should know better. Still, this is one of the best speculative evolution projects I have read. It's so good that the concept has been repeated in a lot of other speculative evolution projects. You can see a lot of these online. My personal favorite being this one called Kappa, which is about a turtle-seeded planet, which just started. It came in my recommendations as I was researching. I really like it. This is really fun. I really hope that he does more. Really good project. Go check that out too, along with Sarah. Siniad is written by Sam Kozman, the same writer that, as we talked about earlier with All Tomorrows and the Better Dino Sapien. And he considers this to be his favorite project of the two. In the 25th century, Israel, Greece, and Turkey all join up together and form a colony on an Earth-like planet. There they encounter bizarre animals. The aliens are oftentimes compared to the ones from Expedition, and I can totally see that. They have very bizarre, not familiar body plans, and I think it really makes it stand out. Like, they have two heads. One has the feeding proboscis, and the other has the sexual and sensory organs in it. Oftentimes, space speculative evolution projects have a kind of Earth animal, but in space pitfall. It is overdone a few times. The inversion evolution can only get you so far, and it feels more interesting when you have a more alien-like vibe to it, for lack of a better term. The author has talked about making this a book, and I really hope he does, because I would support that project all the way. Alex Rees is an artist that you might know from their Subnautica or Godzilla Kong designs. What you might not know is their main project, which is the Buran Project. It takes place on a planet called Chiraya with its own strange organisms. The main focus on the Buran Project is the Buran. The Buran are a six-limbed sapient species of organism. Various aspects of Buran biology, history, and culture are as art station DeviantArt under the name Abiogenesis. Chiraya and Buran are pretty alien, but they have that kind of familiar edge that I find a lot of their art has. Like, in their Subnautica designs, they are very alien, but they have enough convergence with Earth life forms where they feel just familiar enough, and I feel that's the same way with the Buran. They sometimes have detailed, very encyclopedia-like entries, which, is pretty par for the course, but they are very detailed. Like, this is like encyclopedia quality level work. Speaking of which, they're also working on a Buran book, which I didn't know much about outside of them mentioning on their Twitter. So I emailed them, and they were very kind enough to answer me. I asked them a few questions about said projects. According to them, this book is about a third of the way done, and at least will take another 2 years to finish. According to them, it will be in a story similar to Dinotopia. And they're actually kind enough to give me a pitch from their story as well. Bathed in the light of another sun orbits Chiraya, a world not unlike Earth. Teeming with life, the planet plays host to intelligent beings named the Buran. Deep in Chiraya's world-encircling Kilin Desert, two orphan sisters are rescued from a savage band of marauders, taken in by fellow Buran living along Two Sky River. This waterway cuts a swath of life through the sun-blasted Kilin and the great ruins of the long-dead Buran society that once almost burned their world. The two sisters, aloof, fiercely protective Siljari, and the young, precocious Nil, are taken under the wing of the elder matriarch who rescued them. She shows them skies alive with winged hunters, delights in their first encounters with playful, intelligent sea creatures, and introduces them to the giants who work with the people of the valley to live with the land. Yet one dawn, strange Buran arrive in great machines from across the Kilin Desert. They promise the people of the valley that together they can reclaim the glories of the old burnt world. As Siljari and Nil face their quickly changing future, a shadow falls across the valley of Two Sky River as the newcomers dig deeper into bones of the old world. Most speculative evolution takes a clinical encyclopedia tone, and because of that, I really like that the Buran Project has speculative evolution as a backdrop, or more traditional storytelling device. I really am looking forward to this book release. I will be there day one. I'm counting the days. Speaking of projects using speculative evolution as a backdrop, Tales of Chimera is a project by Keenan Taylor, which consists of fantasy books alongside a YouTube channel in which he goes over the rich lore of the world. On the first video I made, this was one of the more requested projects, and I can see why. I never watched it before, and after watching it, it is very good. Chimera is a speculative evolution story that I really haven't seen before. It combines fantasy, science fiction, and speculative evolution, and mixes them all together to make a very unique setting. 50 light years from Earth, an alien intelligence made up of microorganisms makes contact with Earth during the Mid-Devonian. This alien intelligence transports fauna from Earth to Chimera by magic, resulting in a world with dinosaurs, magic, demons, and the like. Even the more fantastical elements, though, are somewhat grounded in science. For example, magic being the harnessing of the alien microorganism, and if I remember correctly, demons are genetic experiments gone wrong. Tales of Chimera's YouTube channel goes over the various biomes, life history of the various clades in Chimera, and it's very well written out. The science fantasy angle really makes Tales of Chimera stand out to other speculative evolution projects, and it's one of the more unique projects I've ever read. This entire world building is for free on YouTube, and the books are available online. I myself have yet to read these books, I'm very busy, but when I have time, I'll definitely go check this out for myself. Please, go check this one out. I'm genuinely surprised it took me until researching this video to watch it. Now, Monster Hunter is a series very near and dear to my heart. I love playing monsters with my friends, and it oftentimes has monster designs grounded in biology, which I really do love. The series is oftentimes speculative evolution adjacent. YouTuber Natural History really does a lot to actually bring it into an actual speculative evolution work. He's done a few one-shots here and there, mainly Spec Evo tropes, and he also has a recurring series on World War Z. In his main series, Monster on Ecology, he brings in actual lore, along with real-world trends in ecology and evolution, and he talks about theoretically how they could behave and evolve in their environments. It's really well thought out. He even cites his sources on the side, letting you cross-reference with your own research if you want. It really mixes the lecture style along with Unnatural History's clear, concise voice. It really does well to give it a professional, scientific feel to it, and helps sell them as actual living animals. He also collaborates with a few artists that have hypothetical skeletal structures, or them just manipulating the models to create a representation of what natural history is talking about. You can tell he's a longtime fan, and he really loves both ecology and Monster Hunter. As someone who is the same way, it's always a treat to find a new video in my inbox. Please, go check it out, it is very good. Finally, we have my personal favorite out of the original web series, Alien Biospheres. Created by Blarion, the world starts with him and fellow YouTuber Artifexian creating a hypothetical alien world, starting with tectonic plates and moving up to the atmospheres. He then talks about the evolution of life on this planet, the literal start of life, and then moves on from there. This series is really in-depth, and I highly recommend it to anyone who is interested in biology like myself. This series goes over various adaptations on Earth, and how might different adaptations arrive in an alien ecosystem. For example, his aquatic animals having a fishy silhouette, due to it being the best way to deal with drag in the ocean. Each episode goes over a singular biome or trend in evolution, and it's very fun to watch. It just finished a few months ago. It went over sapiens and the biology of intelligent species. It is, to be honest, one of the most well-realized projects of its kind on the internet. I highly recommend this one. So there you have it. Speculative evolution is honestly one of my favorite types of science fiction. There's something that just stirs the mind reading what is essentially a biology fanfiction. It's just really cool to see all these worlds people can create and how imaginative they can really get. Biology is very weird in and of itself in terms of what you can see, and so it's really cool to see people try and put their own spin on things. Even if it's a bit unrealistic, I just really like to see all these different worlds and animals people can create by themselves. Please leave your very speculative evolution project down below. There's probably a lot I missed, honestly. Speculative evolution, there's just so much of them, and I know that there's probably going to be someone's here that I overlooked. I hope you take your time to just look around and see all these strange, interesting worlds out there. Read them, watch them. Just please check a lot of these out. I really want more people to see these. I'll see you next time.